don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it.
Hi everyone, welcome to Women Atheists Unload. I'm your host Cindy Plaza, and tonight I'm joined by Ryan. Hi, how are you doing?
Hey, how you doing, Cindy? It's great to see you.
Yeah, me too. I was looking at the list of the hosts during the credits, and we have some pretty amazing people and a very diverse cast, I would say.
I love it. I love seeing
Yeah.
diversity. It's amazing.
Yeah. So tonight we're here to talk about Calvinism versus Pentecostal, and for that we have two guests. Wes, can you please make them appear? Hi.
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 So first we have Erin here. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you for inviting me to be on today.
And ApoStacie. Hi.
Hi. Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Good to see you
So
again.
Yeah, good to see you too, Ryan.
can you both introduce yourselves and why we invited you to this dual Calvinism versus Pentecostal? Erin, can you start?
Sure. So my name's Erin. I go by the name ExXtian Erin online. I was born and raised a Christian, primarily in the charismatic movement. So I have the background of the Pentecostal side in this conversation, although I've done quite a deep dive on Calvinism as well. I deconverted from my faith and became an atheist in 2019, and accidentally started my activism the next year. I started off on Twitter, mostly just screaming into the void, but other people also needed to hear some of that stuff. So I ended up doing lots of interviews, and now I am one of the hosts on Truth Wanted with the atheist community of Austin. So I am just trying to be a part of any conversations that are happening online, and I'm excited about this one.
Sure.
Yeah.
Stacie?
Hi, I'm Stacie, and my online name is ApoStacie. So it's a play on the word apostasy, but it's with the spelling of my name as well. So Erin and I are actually sister-in-laws, which is very cool. And so I also grew up in the charismatic movement. That's what my background is. But in the same year, 2019, I went into a Calvinist church the last 2 years of my Christian journey. And earlier in 2022, as I deconverted and became an atheist, I saw Erin on YouTube giving an interview with Seth Andrews.
Because I had not told her. I had not told hardly anybody.
Yeah, that's right. We actually had no idea. I had no idea that she had deconverted, which was a very cool part of the whole story, and messaged her, and we were both blown away that we had deconverted. And she told me she was an atheist activist. Again, my mind was blown. I had no idea that was even a thing. She told me, hey, I can introduce you on Twitter. And I didn't really know what that meant, but once she introduced me, Neil, the 604 atheist, had me on his show, which was wonderful. I gave my story on there, and I felt the same need, just kind of, I need to get this out. I need to get my journey out, my religious trauma, everything that I've been going through, especially from our Calvinist church. It's been, you can't just leave quietly from there. And so from there, I've been doing a few interviews, and now I'm actually a co-host on the secular on Wednesday nights with
Amazing.
Michael, which is
I
really
love it.
cool.
I love it.
Did not plan any of this, and I love it too because I find the community has been exactly what you need when you leave such a toxic environment from the church.
And exactly the opposite of what you are told to expect, right?
Exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
Exactly the opposite. I have not
You know what I
heard
find?
from any of those people at church. So yeah,
I find
but-
I find so interesting that it seems with most people that I talk to that they go from this deconstruction period to that, like, oh my goodness, I need to tell people about this. Like, I need to tell people what happened to me and tell people the truth. But it doesn't always immediately equate to you telling those closest to you, like in your family circle, because
Not
you know
at
how
all.
they might receive it. Same with me. A lot of my friends don't know, but people like you,
Yeah.
I talk to any
Yes,
day of the week
strangers
about
know.
like, activism, biblical education and stuff. I love it. It's
Yeah.
really cool.
I was terrified for people in my real life to know. And
Right.
yeah.
And now look at you telling the world.
And now I'm like, but now I don't care. Now I
Yeah.
don't care.
Yeah, you kind of lose that. And it's pretty amazing that you both are. So not only do you have like religious experiences together, you have familial experiences together, but now you even have beyond that, you have this whole deconstruction journey that you can now share. And
It's actually really
which is
cool.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, like,
Who
it
would've
gives me
thought?
I'm telling you, it gives me goosebumps. I love this stuff. I live for it. It's amazing. Thank
Someday
you for
we'll-
coming.
Someday our husbands will have to get dragged onto a program to talk about what it's
I
like to have
was
their wives
actually-
deconvert.
Yeah.
Because
I was
our husbands are
actually-
brothers.
Yes.
And they
I
didn't
was-
know that they had both experienced that too, because it was both of our it was us going through the deconstruction, deconversion, and then the husbands
Or
were
just
like, what
kinda
is going
standing
on?
there, like, yeah. And
Yeah.
like my husband, he kind of went along with all of the religious stuff because I was very dedicated, and his exact words were, religion or Christianity has a very romantic idea about it. He always wanted heaven to be true. He always hoped if there was a heaven, he would go to it, kind of on my coattails. But then when I told him, I don't think any of this is real, his words were, I don't think you're wrong, but just take this very slow, because he didn't want me to get traumatized in leaving as well. But I don't know about your husband as much. Like,
Oh,
you don't
my
have to touch
my
about it. But
No, the long and short is that my husband used to be a pastor, so I just would come
exactly.
to him.
Oh, wow.
If this was the Bible, I'd be like, why does it say this? Did you know that there's no long ending in Mark? And I was like harassing him for like 6 months.
Yeah.
Don't do
And
that.
see,
People don't do
and-
that. Eventually, we turned into really good conversations, and he's really supportive of everything. But
yeah.
for a long time, partly because of my Christian upbringing, I thought that like he had the answers, right? Because he was my spiritual leader, and so all these doubts and
Right.
questions I had, I was like, well, I'll just go talk to him
Mhm.
about it because he'll know the answers. And he lots of times was like, I don't know what to say to you right now. So there was a lot of missteps along the way, but overall, it turned out, in the end, it was like something that made us stronger and a better couple. So, but yeah, it was not
Which
quite
is
that
awesome.
smooth for us. It was
Which
a
is
little bit deeper.
rare.
What part
Which
of
is rare.
Yeah.
It tends
Yeah.
to do the opposite.
Yeah.
What I think is interesting in what you just said is that the importance of atheist content on YouTube, because this is how you deconverted both, right? And so we tend to talk about the community aspect and how we need to find people, but I think the aspect that we tend to oversee is representativity. We talk a lot about this with LGBTQ people, but I think it's very important here too, because when you start having those doubts, you start feeling lonely, especially if you have a family, as you both did, have a very, very strongly believing families. And so seeing that you are not alone and other people are like you, that's very, very important.
Yes.
Yeah,
encouraging.
I'm happy to see programs like this on that center women, like female voices in the atheist community, right? Because there's one thing that was, I mean, there was some, but there wasn't as many as there are becoming now. So
Really?
I know when I was deconstructing and I was looking for kind of the angle coming from somebody who is still like in a fairly traditional family system, there was not a lot of that for me. So I think the more we get of different representations of people who are all over the spectrum of their life too, it's good. We just need to have everybody's voices in this because there's so many different experiences, and that was one of the biggest things that kept me sharing my story and keep going with it. Because when I started talking, I would get messages from people who say, "That sounds exactly like what I feel," and I've never heard anybody describe it, but you're describing what I'm feeling, and you gave me some language to like frame that, and I'm like, okay, so I'm there's something good happening here, so that's why I kept going with it.
Yeah, I have to say, Erin, too, like, even though you're my sister-in-law and I know bits and pieces, I've even listened to some of your interviews because I don't know the ins and outs, and even parts of your story, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's exactly how I felt, or I've gone through that exact same thing, and it helps because just hearing
that's
other
the whole
people,
reason I did it. That's the whole reason I did it.
Yeah. Exactly. And I still listen to people's stories, and I want to know like how they came out of it, and because you want to know it, like, is this what other people go through as well, even though you've heard it again and again. And so yeah, I think it is important to share your story, and that is why I enjoy doing this too, is to help other people. So yeah,
Absolutely. And the more voices we add to the table, like you were saying, Erin, intersectionality is really important. I don't know about you all, but I would say 100%, being a former Jehovah's Witness, there's no representation. There was a lot of microaggressions. There's just a lot of things that you're just not aware of, and you don't have the language to describe a lot of your experiences. And now that I'm able to start to educate myself and I see what other people have gone through, I'm like, oh, that's what it's called.
Yeah.
Oh, that's trauma. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But it does encourage, and it does strengthen, and it just broadens your perspective of other people's little piece of life attached to that kind of controlled religion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Definitely.
So in terms of doctrine, what are the main differences between Calvinism and Pentecostal?
Ooh, where do we start?
Right off the bat there.
Let's just dive right into this.
That's why we're
Let's
here.
just knock it out the park, baby.
Yeah.
Well, Stacie,
Well,
do you want to go? Do you want to represent some of the Calvinistic parts? I'll maybe start with a little bit of the Pentecostal side, and you can chime in whether you are like, yeah, that's what I was taught too.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I know a couple of things in the Pentecostal movement is that you don't. There's not a once saved always saved kind of doctrine. You can lose your faith, so you need to be constantly engaging, in your practice to like being continually filled with the Holy Spirit. Speaking of Holy Spirit being filled, Pentecostals generally believe that there evidence that you are been born again, or that you were saved, aka that you are going to heaven, that there's some sort of evidence in spiritual giftings. So a lot of times it's speaking in tongues. I've been in lots of churches where that was the main thing. So if you didn't speak in tongues, you didn't really know if you were saved or if that you had been actually filled with the Holy Spirit, which puts a lot of pressure on people. Obviously, we can talk about the trauma of all that too. Baptism is something that you do as a, not as a baby, but as I did it when I was 9. That was considered a grown up. I did it when I was 9 because that's when I was able to make that that profession of faith on my own and not just from my parents' indoctrination, which is not true. But there is just as far as practical leanings, the church is often very emotionally driven. The sermons and the whole structure of churches on Sunday mornings is very much a progression of emotions. So you have your worship time is usually closely tied into like what the message is, and the message has a kind of end point, and there's usually a kind of a climax to the sermon note where there is a kind of this expectation for response from the people in the audience. So that was all just very normal to go to church on Sunday and expect to feel bad because you had this thing kind of yelled at you, and that you needed to respond by going up to have prayer and to once again, exercise your giftings in the spirit, like speaking in tongues or some other thing like that.
It's like performance anxiety.
It's very performative, I would say. Yeah. The other belief that they have is they believe in predestination millenarianism, I think it's called. So they believed in the rapture, that there would be some sort of a tribulation period. And that kind of it gets nuanced out between denominations, but they did believe that like Jesus is coming back any 5 minutes, and that the Christians would be taken up, and that the people left behind would be stuck in tribulation, and that there would be another chance for them, but that essentially they would have to typical martyr. Yeah, the typical martyr kind of idea that they were going to essentially be gun to your head to decide if you were going to actually choose God. And they do believe in eternal conscious torment. So as a form of hell, it's not just separation from God, it is eternal conscious torment, and that you put yourself there. So it's an intense and emotional denomination, even though on the outside it looks very friendly.
Yeah.
Does that kind of sum it up? Wow. Was that your experience too, Stacie?
Yes. That everything you said. I also had experiences with like being prayed for and then falling out in the spirit as well, and uncontrollable laughter. That was another evidence of the Holy Spirit being present. Yeah. As well as like spontaneous worship, where what that means is just praise and worship going on for hours and hours, and just letting the Spirit lead it. There was no end time, because you don't want to, put God in a box and, keep him on a time schedule. It was just like when he says it's over, then it's over. So
which could literally mean like a 7-hour long worship music session. Yeah. On
a school night. So there were lots of late nights, and also, prophecy. I remember being prophesied over, and those were literal words from God, and sometimes they were great, sometimes they were like, oh, what does that mean? And a little scary. So so basically everything you said.
I think one other thing that's important to touch on is their heavy emphasis on this idea that there's a spiritual war going on. So that and it can touch in every part of your life, that there is a spiritual battle going on, the battle for our souls, and that there is a pretty strong belief in like demons, and that Christians can become oppressed, which is different than possession, but that we are to be kind of vigilant about not letting the devil get a foothold. Like these are just common phrases that get used in that denomination. So whether it was you struggling with math homework or something, that could be something to do with the devil. So it's kind of and especially as you get into more serious things as an adult, like like issues around your marriage, or have like kids or fertility things, right? And things like that. Like that stuff gets really, really interpreted as something going on spiritually, and there's a lot of opportunity for victim blaming.
Emotional manipulation.
I remember having a time where I was just feeling really depressed, and also my husband and I were having a hard time getting pregnant, so I had my grandma come over and just pray in my house, and she's like, we need to walk around and see if there's anything in your home that might have a demon attached to it. So we literally walked through every single room, and in the end there was a circular Mayan calendar my husband bought from Mexico before we were married at a little souvenir shop. So that was the item that we ended up throwing in the garbage, pleading the blood of Jesus around our home, anointing all the doorposts with oil. I didn't even tell him we threw it away, because I was like, he's going to be so mad. But that was the item that apparently had let a demon into our home, and hopefully that would take away my depression and help me get pregnant. It did neither.
Do they proselytize?
Oh yeah.
Oh, they do too. Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. yeah, before I move on, because I have some stories about proselytization, because I did missionary work through the Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada. Just to talk about one more thing, just for my story, was with the spiritual warfare, was that I have a chronic illness, and I had been the victim of many exorcism attempts to try to get rid of my illness, because that's part of the belief. That is part of the belief system, that if you're struggling from illness,
so angry.
Yeah, so I've shared that story. If anybody looks up any of my longer interviews, I've gone into depth over that story, but incredibly harmful practices, I would say. Proselytization. Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you. It took a long time for me to even realize that was a harmful thing that happened to me.
What was happening to you?
I never viewed it as something that was abusive until 15 years later. So yeah, it's just you get really wrapped up into the whole this feels normal when you're raised like that, especially from birth, right?
It's normalized.
I was a part of a missionary team, and I was on it for a year, and where we did a lot of evangelical kind of outreach stuff, door to door. I've knocked on doors. I've done street ministry, park ministry. I traveled overseas to do more of that, and yeah, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that you see kind of made fun of sometimes on YouTube, where somebody's on the street walking up to somebody, I hate to even say this, walking up to somebody in a wheelchair and asking if you can pray for them because you believe in miracles.
Yeah.
Nothing ever happened. Never saw a miracle. Never once.
Right. The ableism is so rampant in these religions. It's deplorable. Oh.
Yeah. But it's always been framed in we're walking in faith that it's going to happen. So if it doesn't happen, it's because you didn't believe hard enough. There's always all these fallback kind of things, and
right, the guilt falls on you.
Yeah, I remember a really common expression was there's the people who plant and the people who harvest. So it's this is the big concept that they would fall back to why you didn't see anything happen, because it's some people are out there just to plant the seeds. So if nothing happens, if no one ever comes to Jesus because of your your witness to them, that doesn't mean nothing happened. It just means that you weren't the harvester. And there's just all these kind of thought stopping kind of cliches that they will do, honestly, to always have a reason why nothing's falsifiable, because they've got these other ways of explaining it.
Yeah, those thought stoppers are something. They work.
Yeah, they do.
Suck, but they really do. They keep you in your place. They do exactly what what it says. Stop you from being able to critically think. Yeah.
They've had 2,000 years to practice them, so they're pretty effective.
They are.
Sleeping it perfectly. Forming it.
Yeah.
So what about political activism on those two sides? Are they political engaged? Just
there wasn't when I was growing up. Honestly, it was not talked that much when I was growing up, but I can see a huge change in the last 6 years. I know it's been a big shift in the last and it's strange too. Even as Stacie and I are both Canadian, and to see the typical evangelical movement that's happening in the States is very much alive and well here in Canada. We even have people who are more wrapped up in American politics than they are about Canadian politics, and get our laws confused because there's such an emphasis on American politics. So it has become more and more political. And I, for one, have heard many people who are preaching from the pulpit about their politics and who they think their congregants should vote for.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, are the laws similar? Where here we can file a form with the government and they can look into it and get their charitable status revoked? Are there systems like that in place to keep them from getting their grubby little?
There are similar. Sorry, Stacie, I keep blurring over.
Oh no, that's okay. Go ahead.
There are similar laws, but there are different ones at the same time. So in Canada, there is a slight difference in your freedom to to express yourself religiously. There is a one that vetoes that, and that's the the well-being and human rights of everybody. So if your religious practice does cause harm, there are a couple reasons why the government could shut down your church or shut down what you're doing, because it's violating some other kind of human rights thing. I don't remember right now the specifics about the separation of church and government, and whether there can be like a process of violating or process to claim violation of that. I'd have to look into that, but I know that it is slightly different in Canada for who can worship and do what, because the Charter of Human Rights, which is like our, kind of constitution, is a little bit different. There's a few things that are different.
Okay. Interesting.
Did you want me to go over some of the doctrines in Calvinism that's a little bit different?
Would love you to.
Okay, because I was after what Erin was saying. So the differences between like Pentecostalism and Calvinism is, especially in the Reformed Church that I ended up going into, is they believe in baptizing infants pretty much right when they're born. They don't believe in until they make the decision. That was a very strange thing for me to kind of wrap my head around. One thing that Pentecostals do for babies is they do a baby dedication. So that just means you're going to raise your child in the faith, and then once they're old enough, they can make that decision. Whereas Calvinists will literally baptize, or Reformed will baptize their babies. It's just a sprinkle of water, so it's not like full immersion.
Okay.
And they have scripture to back that up, just like they have scripture to back up. There's scripture to back up why you wait till you're older and you make that decision. So that is also another very confusing thing. They don't believe in speaking in tongues. They don't believe in the spiritual gifts that we have now. So they those are called apostolic gifts, like prophecy, speaking in tongues, like the healing gifts. They think those are all basically finished when the apostles all died.
That's called cessationalism, right?
Cessationism. Yeah. So those gifts ceased. Yeah. So they're cessationists. So again, I also was like, oh yeah, I can totally see how backed by scripture that makes sense. Again, I can also see backed by scripture why speaking in tongues should still be active today. It's very strange.
It's almost like it contradicts itself.
Yes.
That's impossible.
Well, just consider it.
So they have that. They also believe in election. So there's only people who are elected to be saved, that God has predetermined who those people are before the foundation of the earth. So also that there's people who are elected for hell, that they are not going to be saved in Christian. So there's also a lot of kind of haughtiness to, we're the elect. And so you also don't really have a say in whether or not you're going to be a Christian or not. God has determined that. So you don't really have a choice. If God has determined that, that's what's going to happen, whether you like it or not.
Is it referred to as something? Yeah. Is it referred to something like it's the irresistible grace? I think I've heard that.
Yes.
So it's like those who are, those who are elect, which we have no way of determining that.
No, we don't know who's elect or not.
God only loves those elected ones, or something like that. They don't right. That's another thing too. They don't believe it. Like God is unconditionally loving of everybody. He loves those who He's elected, and and then those who elect will at some point experience some sort of irresistible, like pull towards Him, and they will. And then that is like how they determine that they're a Christian, right? Yeah. And even when they're a Christian, they're confessing Christian, but no one can ever say I am for sure Christian, right? Yeah, it's so different.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll stop.
So, no, that's totally fine. Because it's part of a way to remember, like I think it's the doctrines of grace. There's 5 of them. So and to remember is the tulip, which is total depravity. So you're absolutely depraved. You're born a sinner. There's nothing you can do to change.
Which Pentecostals believe as well.
Yeah, we believe that as well.
It's T needs to be for trauma. That is immediately trauma right there. Yeah, a little piece of you were just
exactly
a little sinner. Sorry.
Yeah. So it just stands for a bunch of unconditional I think something limited atonement, irresistible grace, and the P is for something else. Like perseverance of the saints or preservation of the saints. Either one. Yeah, that's right. Good job. So you can be a 5-point Calvinist, which they believe all of those. And if you're a 4-point Calvinist, then most of the time you don't believe in the election part of it.
Oh,
that's
okay.
where. So
you only have one lip instead of 2 lip.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was the one thing my husband was just like, I don't know about this whole election stuff. He's like, that makes no sense at all. But that's why you're still supposed to still preach the gospel to everyone, because you don't know who's elected, who's not. So you're still supposed to go and like preach the gospel. And
do you have to just trust that election? Like, are you or just does this?
Yeah, it's not up to you.
Soul?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. So basically, it's nothing that you can do. It's nothing that you can do. It's only by God who opens your eyes and who opens your heart to understand the gospel. And it's really nothing that you can do.
And how do they address the fact that you may not be elected, but still you have to do the work, even though you will get nothing in the end? How do they address that?
I don't think they care. They don't care because God. Honestly,
it's so sad.
Yeah, like God's ultimate supremacy. Like He is like who are we, mere creatures of the
and you don't
of the earth. It. You would not question God's sovereignty in that. So it's like you don't the potter or the pot does not question the potter or whatever. Like that's my impression of it anyway, which is like pretty common in a lot of denominations. They may word it differently, but as many denominations have their own form of that. Like if it's like if you think that's unfair, like who are you to question the maker of the universe?
Exactly.
So there's just different ways of expressing that, and I think when you take in all the other points of their tenets of belief, it can come across as more of a you're more chastised or not sometimes. And I've always felt like the Calvinist version is very much like, how dare you question the one who created you? Just very intense.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's another thing that's different between Pentecostalism and Calvinism is I don't find there to be any kind of emotional response in their services. At least the one the church that I went to. We stuck to singing songs out of the Trinity Psalter hymnal. It was very boring.
Is it just really low key?
That's the one good thing about the Pentecostal churches. It was kind of fun.
It was fun. It was like a concert.
Modern music, and there was like
we had strobe lights. And this was an organ and a flute. And our songs were written like you would say the year, and it was like 1400, 1500. Like they were old. And someone posted a picture from the church that we used to go to, and like the songs that they sang last week was "There is a fountain filled with blood," and it's just like I'm like, ew. It's just anyway. So it's bizarre, but they read the creed every week. They read like the Nicene Creed, the Apostles' Creed, or the it starts with an A. It's really long. I can't remember that one, but they read the creeds every week. They read from this book called the Canons of Dort, which is from the Netherlands. Yeah, so it's
overall it's a lot more liturgical. Like
very liturgical. They have it all written on what you're gonna or put on the sign what you're gonna do. It's the same. They read the 10 Commandments every single week. It's very repetitive and
repetition is the best way to brainwash somebody.
Indoctrinate you. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the church we went to, there were 2 services on Sunday, and it was a requirement to attend both at 10 a.m. and 3:30. And it was like a requirement. And even in our membership meeting with like the consistory, which is like the pastor and the elders, we were like, we might not come to both. And they're like, they weren't happy with that. And we're like, well, we thought,
your Sunday plans and getting ready for school and stuff the next week.
I
right?
know. I honestly thought that if we were going to get disciplined, it would be for not attending both services. And there was one Sunday that we went in the morning and the pastor preached heavy on why we need to attend both services. And I looked at my husband and I was like, I was actually getting really angry. I'm like, I feel like he's like preaching this just for us because it's a small church. Right? It's a small church. Mm-hmm. And I said, we're not coming back later. Like, we're not coming just because I feel like he's literally preaching this for our benefit. And we didn't go back that day because I was just like, no, you're not going to manipulate us to come. And we didn't. But no, now we're just getting disciplined because I'm doing stuff like this. And
right. This is make it worth
I want
it.
to talk about that. I want to talk about what the difference was when we both left the churches.
Please,
before you do that, I want to answer a question from the chat. We have Kent Hovind fan here. Does the panel think that they are descended from monkeys? So we don't descend from monkeys. We are cousins of current monkeys. We descend from a common ancestor. If you have any other stupid questions, go ahead. I mean, you're in.
I want to say, is that what you believe that we believe? Because someone has misinformed you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So when we left these denominations, so like Stacie and I had grown up same kind of belief system. We had attended the same church before she moved away.
Not the Calvinist one. But
no, not the Calvinist church. We had attended a Pentecostal church, which is, like you got the good coffee bar and they'll give you like little, they had got great kids programs. Like it was a very seeker friendly church, honestly, that we were going to at the time. When I started to leave, I had gone to church for 3 months or so during my deconstruction. So the last few times I was in church, knowing that the pastor was talking out his ass on something. So I was like, that is not who wrote that book or like whatever. And
oh my gosh.
And then so eventually it got to the point where I was like, I think we'll just take a little break from it. But ultimately, if I were to skip forward in the whole thing, I left and nothing happened. I left and I got a call, the yearly call that they would do, just saying like, hey, we're just calling to see how your family is doing and because during the time it was early pandemic, how your family is doing and if there's anything we can pray for you for. And that was it. I didn't respond to that call. I got another call the next year and I got an email. And eventually I just wrote in the email that my husband and our kids, we're no longer attending church. Please remove me from your directory. And that was the end of it. I never was, there's no other disciplinary actions beyond that. So that's is going to be very different from Stacie's experience leaving the Calvinist church.
And Ryan as well, I think you're going to be jealous there.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I didn't know that. Yeah. I mean, that sounds pretty standard.
Yeah. It's like, okay, well, go, whatever. It's just like, be blessed or whatever. It was nothing.
Be blessed. Bye.
And if I showed up there on Sunday, they'd be like, oh, you're welcome back. Like, it's not super.
No big deal.
No.
Really?
No. Yeah. So mine,
on the other hand, was completely different.
So it started out with our pastor our former pastor calling us, like he was doing because we moved. Hey, have you found a new church? And we were telling him, yeah, we tried this one. And he was like, it's not. Yeah, no, I don't think you should go there. They won't recognize your children's baptism. That was his biggest thing. And I was like, okay. But then it had been 3 months since we had attended church. And I said to my husband, I was like, he's going to call. I just know he's going to call and I'm going to have to tell him. And that was fine. I was fine being the one because I'm the one I felt who got us into this whole mess. So, so he called in February and I said, okay, I'm going to be just very blunt. We're not looking to become members at any church, and we don't want to be members at your church. You can just remove us, and thank you. And like, we're no longer interested in religion, and we're very skeptical of it all. And I've just been doing a lot of reading, and I just don't think I believe in anything. And he was like, what? So he's like, well, I think you need to just, I won't take any disciplinary measures right now. Let's just leave this for a few months and I'll touch base with you. And I was like, yeah, I don't think you need to. Like,
the audacity that like an adult man is telling an adult woman who he's not, has no other prior connections to, that he was going to refrain from disciplining you.
Yeah.
Sounds like bizarre.
Yeah. It was an hour.
I'm sure,
call.
Ryan, I'm sure you're like, yeah.
Oh yeah.
There's grown ass men who try to discipline other grown ass people. But
that's it's commonplace. It's and any old man would do it to you. You know what I mean? They have no problem.
Exactly.
Yes, but yes, they would have no problem speaking out.
Yes,
but who you were, if you're a woman.
Yeah. So I didn't hear back from him, or I think he tried to email. I ended up just blocking him completely because I was like, hey, I've said everything. If he tries to get in touch, my husband can take it from here. And he was like, yeah, that's fine. So then in the end of March, when Erin actually introduced me on Twitter, one of the members of the church is very active online. She has a large presence in the Reformed community. Mm-hmm. She saw the post and I was like, hey, because she posted it on her social media, Erin introducing me, and basically quoted 1 John 2:19 that I was never in the faith or whatever. So I was like, okay, fine, you can play that card. So I said to my husband, okay, here we go. This is where it begins. That was on a Friday night. And by that Monday morning, we had a formal letter from the church in my husband's email telling us we needed to repent. And it was like 5 or 6 paragraphs long of like all the things we needed to do, or they were going to start like taking discipline measures with us and publicly calling us out. So I was like, Brian's like, thank you for your concern, but we're good. We don't need you. We're fine. Thank you very much, but goodbye. So by Easter, they had that was like mid-April, they did their first sermon called God Disciplines His Children. And I said to my mom, okay, here we go. Brace yourself. Yeah. And that was our first call out.
Publicly called out on YouTube during a sermon. She sent it to me. It was disgusting. Yeah. Called out by name, mentioning your children's names, shaming you. And it was, I was like, this is really happening right now. This grown man is calling and singling out specifically Stacie because she was the instigator here. And also making threats based on what kind of things she is putting her children at risk for. Like eternal damnation and all these things. Like, I was just like, I'd been out for a couple of years, but I was just like, this, what? Like, this is insane. Like, and because we're in the world of, because we're in a pandemic world where all the churches we're online now, all of a sudden. This was broadcasted out on the internet. It's on the internet. And I'm just like, this is insane.
Yeah. So that was number one. Then 2 weeks later, they did a more formal announcement where they went up with a letter that they read, again, doing the exact same thing.
So now they had a prepared statement this round.
They had a prepared statement,
Okay.
Exactly the same thing. They mentioned
or maybe that's the one that I was thinking of, where they mentioned your name and your kid's name.
Oh, yeah, but they did it the first time too. Yeah, but same thing. Yeah. And you're not wrong. And then I was so mad. And then I stopped tuning in. And then I have tuned in a couple times just out of curiosity, and they'll still, even just 2 weeks ago, I thought, oh, okay, I'm just gonna just pop on and see. And they no longer refer to us by our names. We're just the Wayward family.
Oh my God, I love that. You could brand that. That's amazing.
I was like,
Petty.
yeah.
How
So
petty.
I looked up the word
Copyright
wayward.
it so they can't say
I was
it
like-
anymore.
Yeah, I
Just
know.
put it in
I
your
was-
bio. Just copy
I thought-
Wayward Family TM.
Yeah.
There you go, TM.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Basically, the word wayward, I looked it up on dictionary, and it's like hard to control, unpredictable, and perverse behavior or something. And I was like,
reverse. I love it.
I know. I was like, okay, well, I'm control. I was like, perfect.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be controlled. So, yeah, so they're still doing that. And I feel like just from someone else that I know that's come out of a Reformed church, I think they were officially excommunicated after a year. So I feel like we will still be brought up until probably next April, and then we'll be officially excommunicated. So, but the thing is when they have done this, nobody from the church has reached out in concern for my eternal soul. They just come to my social media page and creep and want to see what they don't care. So it's like, do you actually believe in this?
Nosy.
Because if you
Right.
did, you would be like, oh my God, Stacie, you're going to hell. Like, what are you
Maybe they're
doing?
jealous.
That's what I was just going to
Maybe
bring up.
jealous
That
because
I'm
you're out.
very curious if we could somehow time travel to 5 years from now. I'm wondering what the unintended consequences of this are going to be, because even if you're excommunicated, no one can police where, people are looking up on social media.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if just, if they continue to follow you and continue to see that your life doesn't fall apart.
No, I'm happy.
I think that was one of the best things that you've done since then, because you realize
Yeah.
that these people are watching you extra closely, and you just continue to be your nice, bright, normal
You're
self.
planting seeds.
You
You're
are planting
planting
seeds,
seeds.
and you might even get to harvest them later on. Yeah,
Hey, if they
Turn it
reach
back
out, I'll
around
be
on
like,
them. I love it.
hey guys, yeah.
yeah.
But I did talk to one person, and I did tell her, they're not doing this for us. They're doing it for you. They're doing
Trying to
this so
scare
that
you.
you don't do what we're doing, because they don't
Making
want
a
you to do this.
scene.
Yeah, exactly. Because
Yeah.
how scary is this to think, oh, I don't want my name to be called out. I don't
And
want,
how common is that in a very high control religion like JW, like these harsh
yeah.
Calvinist churches,
Yeah.
or like Mormonism, there is so much of how they react to people who start to disparage the organizations or the churches. It's a scare tactic to try to say, if you leave, you're going to get the same treatment. So it's like it's setting an example for
warning.
it. Yeah. And it's a way to control their own followers, the current ones, so that they don't go anywhere, right? Like, it's a total abuse tactic. So it's a smear campaign, as some people would say. We're just going to publicly shame you, and we're going to call you crazy, so nobody believes you. Yeah.
exactly.
The more they drive that wedge and the us versus them,
Yeah.
and that mob mentality, it just keeps them going.
Yeah.
But
One thing.
Oh, go ahead.
No, it's okay. One thing I was that reminded me of it was that when you're talking about you leaving the Calvinist church, just to quickly go back to these really big differences between the denomination's tenets of faith, because of this idea of election. If someone in Calvinism falls away from the faith, they are immediately said to have never been a Christian, because that's a little different than in the just even the wider Protestant church and Pentecostalism. They have this idea that you can become filled and have this relationship with God, and then you are rebelling against him. So it's this idea that you can become, the idea of being lukewarm and then rebelling away, but there's not this idea that you faked it. In Calvinism, there's a really big emphasis on that. If you leave, you were never a Christian in the first place. And that's
Right.
For people who dedicated even Stacie 2 years, or maybe other people 40 years of their lives to these churches and had made sacrifices in their lives in order to be part of the community, and then they leave, and then they immediately get told that they were just faking it the whole time. It's crazy making. That's a crazy making. Yeah. I think it's exceptionally harsh, even though I know that phrase, you were never a true Christian, gets used a lot in kind of online discourse about this, but that's actually a tenet of their belief in Calvinism.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting.
Even though I'm not a Christian, I don't care. For some reason, that's still just makes
it's
me
bothersome,
so mad.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you devote.
So wait, I have a question.
Yeah.
So then Satan was never an angel. God created the devil like straight out the gate.
How dare you find a plot hole?
That is so good.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't know. I was just like,
No, it's good though, right?
Interesting.
Because if he had ever known God, he would never have fallen away, right?
Right.
So
So
that does make
so
sense,
God
but
must
that's
have-
way
he
too.
must have
Don't.
just created the devil at the bat.
That's
Yeah.
Too deep.
too meta for I think these doctrines. So
I love
yeah.
it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's some really interesting stuff. So you both experienced like is that called echolalia?
Oh yeah,
the speaking in tongues?
glossolalia. Yeah,
Glossolalia.
Yeah,
most
I'm
common.
sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Glossolalia. Okay.
And can we both do it still? You betcha.
Uh-huh.
Have I done it online?
Right
Not yet. I haven't been offered enough money to do it
If
online yet.
If you please, will you let me know?
I know, right?
I'm curious to know.
I can definitely still do it, and I haven't
Oh,
done
yeah.
it online. Although I did write it out phonetically one time, and I had somebody
you?
read it. I sent them like phonetically what my like tongues sounded like, and they read it out loud, and I just about died of laughter because I couldn't. It was so funny.
Did it sound like it would sound if you said it?
Like if I was saying it very slowly, and
Okay.
yeah, it was hilarious. So
Oh my
yeah.
gosh. I remember being at, because my kids used to go to a Christian school, and I met someone who was like super woo-woo Christian, and she was even too Christian for me. And we were walking down the hall, and she's like, "Do you speak in tongues?" And I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "You should come over sometime and we should speak in tongues together." And I burst out laughing. I was like, "No." She's like, "Oh, why?" And I'm like, "Because that's weird."
Well,
Like,
and because people have different views of it, right? Like there are some people who will just do it all the time because it can be kind of like this showy thing. Other people do take it more as like this personal prayer language, so it's not always treated the same. I mean, it's hilarious now when we understand like
I was
psychologically what's going
embarrassed
on,
by
but
it in front of people. I was like,
I
don't want anyone to hear that.
I actually have my journal entries from the day that I was baptized in the gift of tongues. I have my journal entry from that day. It was wild.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because for me, I was like 17. And so I had grown up for 17 years waiting for that to happen. And it hadn't happened yet. So for me, that was like, I'm finally been given my evidence that I am truly saved. So that was the day that I thought I was going to heaven.
Wow.
It was a big deal. Yeah.
And I started speaking in tongues when I was like 8.
Yeah. That doesn't surprise me.
I was watching cartoons one Saturday morning. Sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
Really? No, tell me. So you were watching cartoons and what happened?
Yeah, I was praying. I wanted it so bad, and then all of a sudden I started speaking in tongues, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is it!" And so I was like, I didn't want to stop because I thought it would just never happen again. So I went into my room and just continued speaking in tongues on my bed, and then it was done, and I was like, "Okay, I guess I'm done." And I was like, "I hope I can do that again later."
Yeah.
Turns out you can because it's gibberish, but
yeah,
right.
There's been so much research into it, like what it actually is and how like it's just this, it's something going on in your this certain part of your brain that's like connected to language, but it also has to do with like this ability to kind of like disassociate a little bit, and that you never speak tongues outside of your own language vernacular of like the tones and stuff that you already know. So there's it's just really fascinating. Anybody essentially could do it. And there is like really funny things online. I remember finding one time a video of like Terrence McKenna, who's like the mushroom guy, showing how he can speak in tongues when he is tripping. And I was like, okay, this is really not, this is really just something that is just kind of a human phenomenon. And it's just gibberish using your own like phonetic vernacular. So it's not actually that special.
Are you both on TikTok? Are you all on TikTok?
I am not. I am, but I'm not. I have no videos on TikTok right now.
Well, have any of you seen the light language? Because
yes,
to me, light language seems an awful lot like
it is. It's the same thing.
What y'all are talking about. Okay, I wasn't sure, but I'm like, is this just like a new age
Oh yeah,
way of
there's a lot of connections from, if we go back to like the ideas of Pentecostalism or just the charismatic movement in general, there's so much
Mhm.
overlap between New Age beliefs. Even the idea of manifestation is like,
Yes.
if you really break it down, it's no different from faith healing. Yeah, light
Just like
language, same thing
expanding
as speaking
upon
in
it.
tongues. Yeah. There's just a
Okay.
lot of like technical overlaps in the thought processes
Less
that happen.
dogma. I'm guessing like there's
Yeah,
less
yeah.
like where you have to have these strict standards that you stick by.
Yeah, because of my background in charismatic Pentecostalism, like I actually kind of did take a little dodge into New Age stuff on my way out of religion. So,
Yeah.
because it's just,
Just a
and then I
little
realized it was just so easy because it's the same thing.
right.
Yeah,
See, and that's
people
what
do
kind of
tend
got
to
me
do
out.
that too, jump off.
yeah,
What got you out, were you saying?
Oh, well, see, that's what got me out of kind of the charismatic, is because I was
Yeah.
seeing, oh, this is no different than
Okay.
New Age. That's why
Yeah.
I went into Calvinism, because I was like,
Oh.
no, this is just New Age with a Christian label, and that's not
Mhm.
Christian.
yeah, because you'll find a lot of that online too. I mean, there's so
Yeah.
much infighting between the two different denominations, and
Yeah.
so like if you go look, I mean, I watched a ton of debates when I was on my way out. So like listening to debates between like, you know, different denominations or different religions. I watched the, you know, different debates between
That's a good
charismatic and Baptists, or charismatic and Calvinists. I listened to debates between Christians and Muslims, and I'm like, you know what? They all have a reason, and they all cancel each other out. That's basically
Yes.
what I came to.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
even the Calvinists, well, they think charismatics aren't saved.
Oh yeah,
They think they're not worshiping the same Jesus, because
every church is the same way. They don't think that the
Exactly.
church that down the street that they have it all wrong and that they're going
No.
to hell because they don't practice in the same way, or they don't hold the same tenets.
Yeah.
I grew up my whole life thinking that my dad, because my parents were divorced, and my mom was remarried really when I was quite young. So I grew up with my mom and my stepdad in the Pentecostal church, and my dad, my birth dad, went to the Baptist church literally down the street, and I thought he was going to hell.
Yeah.
Because he just had a different
my
practice
goodness.
than me. Because that's how, you know, there's so much, the us versus them is like,
It's huge.
forget the people who are secular. There's enough infighting going on between denominations. Like,
Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
Right.
And
I think
when
sometimes we forget that as atheists, like how
Yeah.
much infighting there is
totally.
between the sects.
when
Definitely.
I told like my Christian friends that were more charismatic that I was joining a Reformed church, well, pretty much then they might have thought I was an atheist. That's how much they thought, oh, okay, well, she's no longer a Christian. So
you're giving up all your gifts of the Spirit.
exactly. Like they thought I had basically left the faith 3 years ago.
That makes sense.
So so a Pentecostal would not think that somebody who's doing like the light language, they're like, that's not really it.
Oh no, that's just demonic. That's just demonic activity.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Because
it's absurd. The hypocrisy is so absurd.
Yeah.
I know, right? But no, demons. Everybody knows.
Exactly.
Right? Demons can mimic things. They can mimic Christian behavior. They can mimic illnesses. They can mimic the gifts of the Spirit. That is why you need somebody who has the gift of discernment to tell you whether it's demonic or not.
I was just going to say how everything that Christians have, the devil has a counterfeit for.
Yes.
That's why with Christians there's prophecy. With the devil there's psychics.
Yeah.
So
it's almost like there's no, like, it's almost as if you as a person can trust absolutely nothing except exactly what you're told. Like everything else is other, and you can only believe this. Oh, it's just really.
Yeah, you're onto something though.
white.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's such from very on, whether we're talking about like physical things to do with like, you know, like sexuality and stuff like that. They teach you not to trust your body. They teach you not to trust your mind. They teach you not to trust your own judgments. They set you up in this place where you have to look at somebody in an authority place, which can set you up for abuse and all sorts of things, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, there is a huge process as you're coming out of that to learn how to decipher things. First of all, we can talk about critical thinking and learning how to like really take in
God, I was
information and
so
decide
gullible.
whether
Oh,
something is
Oh,
true
yeah.
or not, how to adjudicate that information. And then the next huge
Yes.
process is learning how to trust your own self, how to trust your body when
Exactly.
it's telling you this isn't right, this doesn't feel right, I'm uncomfortable, that, you know, that person's lying to me. Like there's this huge process of rediscovery when you've been trained your whole life to completely distrust yourself. And that's,
Shut
you know,
it all off. Yeah.
right.
Everything
Yeah.
is a
You're
demon if it's
disconnected.
bad.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you know, going through, if you would identify with having religious trauma, which I think like a good majority of people have in some facet or another, whether it's, you know, kind of more minor or whether it's just completely all encompassing, which a lot of people have felt, it's so important to go through those process of getting like trauma counseling or like talking through these things and relearning like these methods to connect to your body, because people are so detached from themselves because they've been trained that way their whole lives. Like,
Mhm.
somatic, you know, reprocessing therapies and things like that, like they are almost necessary for anybody who is raised like that.
Yeah. To
Yeah, what
disassociate.
you're describing is the I in the bite model.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you control
Information,
information, you control the people.
control.
Right. Exactly.
Right. 100%. They read it right out the playbook,
Yeah.
or they
Yeah.
create the playbook, whatever it is. Doesn't matter. They set the ground rules, and then you just have to play
Yeah.
along. That's how it's designed.
It's so insidious.
That's right. Yeah.
So we are at the 1 hour mark, and um, do you ladies have anything you want to add on the topic before we close in?
Well, I don't know, Erin. I think
I always
you
have crap to say.
well,
It's not
if
crap.
you could just right before the show started, you had one good thing, if you can remember, about the controlling aspect.
Okay,
I really
sure.
liked what you had to say, and I would just like, yeah.
Okay, sure.
I think that would be perfect.
I think that, well, I will preface this in major disclaimer that I'm not a professional in any kind of the matter, but just that looking at this and kind of like observing it from my own armchair kind of psychologizing, I do see different elements of personality in these different denominations, which I think is why some people do move from denomination to denomination until they find one that is more cohesive with their own individual personality, and why some people may struggle more if they're in a denomination that doesn't really fit them. But my biggest takeaway when I think from that framework, Pentecostalism and Calvinism, is that there's a much stronger element of a need for control in the Calvinist church. And with a Pentecostal church, it is very much about this emotion, like, you know, this emotional expression and this emotional fulfillment. And it's just, I think it's interesting to see how that plays out with people. And my own experience with talking to Calvinists, when I am also on a different show where I do call-ins and I talk to people, a lot of the Calvinists that I talk to use presuppositional apologetics, which is kind of the I'm rubber, you're glue, nothing sticks to me, whatever, because there's just this element of total control and this circular reasoning that happens in it. And I just I find it really interesting to see how wildly different these two denominations can be and which kind of people they draw in. So if you are a very a sincere, empathetic person, you probably are more vulnerable to being pulled into a charismatic movement. If you are somebody who is dealing with things where you're seeking control, or you're trying to tame the chaos dragon, don't talk. I'm not going into that. But somebody who's looking for a 1, 2, 3 system, with control, and it set out values and who to follow, and also to step into a place of superiority where you think you have it figured out. I think that is the kind of people that Calvinism seems to draw over. But like I said, it is just a observation I have made over the last 5 years or so, and I could be wrong, and I'd be happy to be proven wrong on that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Just reading over it, trying to get accustomed to have a little bit of knowledge, because as I said, the behind the stage, like as a Jehovah's Witnesses, we were not very educated on other religions, even though they told us we were so much more educated than other people were about religions. Yeah, so when I was reading about it, one of my takeaways was it seemed like a supremacist kind of point of view, Calvinist. And I don't know if it's black and white. It seems to be. I can't comment, but I do understand from listening to you both tell your story, why people do tend, I can see it, why you would tend to go from one
Yes.
religion into, thankfully
I
I
think
missed it. I
Can I
dodged
tie-
it.
yeah, can I tie that all in a little bit too? Like what I was
Please, yeah,
just saying
please.
about the so when I see someone like Stacie, your journey out of religion, and I've seen this actually it's pretty common. People who come from all different kinds of denominations will often steer towards Calvinism and on their way out. Because I think at that time, I'm just guessing that like you find yourself confused about doctrine, and then comes along Calvinism, and they're like, we have it all figured out 100%.
Right.
So I think that is a very common part of that pipeline from Christian to secular is making a stop at Calvinism because they claim to have the most studied, most researched, most consistent view of the Bible. So when Stacie and I caught up and you told me that you've been involved in Calvinism, I think my response was like, oh yeah, that's so common.
You totally did.
Yeah.
You weren't even surprised.
Yeah.
Which made me feel better.
Yeah, it's not a weird thing. It's actually very, very common. So
It makes sense.
Yeah.
But I would hope that those in our audience, I'm sure they're probably already deconstructed, but those who may be tuning in, who are just questioning their beliefs, we definitely encourage you to ask questions of any group organization that you intend to get involved with. How do they treat people of color? How do they treat people with disabilities? These are the kind of things before you go getting into groups, churches, any organization. Ask questions, just as you're deconstructing and you're asking questions before you get into something else. Please do some research. Like before you go see a doctor, you'd probably look up some reviews. You might want to do the same thing with your religion.
Yeah.
It's okay to get a second opinion, basically.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yes, it's absolutely okay. Yeah. Read some opinions, talk to some friends, read some stories online. It's all out there now for us. Thank goodness. There's plenty. I can't wait to go and do some snooping now into your stories. Now that I know they're out there, I could do some snooping myself, but in a good way. Because I want to see you succeed, not because I'm like old church members.
That's funny.
And to end on a more positive note, the realization that you were both going through the same path, what did it do to your relationship?
To Stacie and I's relationship?
Yeah.
Oh, it rekindled it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
That's
we had
awesome.
a time in our life where life got busy. We've got kids. She moved, we moved, all those. And so there was no maybe intentional reason why we just kind of lost touch. And so this has been it was a huge and wonderful surprise. And I can't wait. We haven't actually seen each other in person yet because now we live 4 or 5 hours away from each other, but I can't wait to see you in person. I know for myself, I don't have a lot of other family or support with what I do now. So it feels amazing to have somebody so accessible to me that is also involved in this now.
Yeah, it's
More
pretty
support.
awesome. And I know it's really cool because as soon as I met Erin, I liked her immediately, and I knew I wanted to be not just sisters but friends. And so now to have this extra layer of something in common, I think it actually brings us even closer than even our church days. I think.
Trauma bonding.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's great to hear. There can be a silver lining. I mean, sucks to have to go through the stuff that we go through, but it's great that we have people that are in our lives that we can depend on.
When you go through something like this and someone else has too, you don't even have to explain everything. You just know. It's just You know what I'm feeling. Yep, I do. Okay,
Right.
perfect.
Just like, yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's right.
So,
Without saying it.
yeah.
Okay, so I would like to thank our guests for coming up and joining us tonight to speak about this very interesting topic. Erin, where can we find you?
You can find me. I'm on Twitter, although I am not that active these days, but I am on there. Just at ExXtian Erin or ExXtian Erin Erin. You can find me there, and you can also find me on the channel Truth Wanted. I am a host over there, and you can go check out that program where I take calls and talk to actual people like Calvinists.
I have to make sure I listen. That's awesome.
Yeah. ApoStacie?
I'm actually just started co-hosting on Skeptic Haven's network with Michael Wiseman on Wednesdays with the secular soapbox. So
Nice.
that's been a lot of fun. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, congratulations. That's awesome.
Thanks. It's been
Yeah.
really fun, and Michael's amazing. So yeah, mostly there, and then I'm on kind of all the socials, and yeah. So
And she doesn't know
this name.
she doesn't know this yet, but she's going to be my guest on Truth Wanted soon.
Oh. Okay.
We'll talk later. We'll talk later.
Okay.
No.
Oh,
Yeah,
that'll be
no,
fun. Okay. Well, now I know. Awesome. Yay.
Details to be figured out later. Whatever.
Okay. TBD.
Yeah, TBD. Your people
Perfect.
get to your people.
Yeah.
and you'll
Okay.
figure it
Yeah.
out.
Okay. Well, that'll be super fun.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think the exercise of answering calls is very interesting because you never know what you get, and
Yeah.
It's a wild
And-
ride.
yes, yeah,
I
yeah,
bet. You don't
That'll
know.
be fun.
The unexpected.
Cool.
yeah. So what about you, Ryan? Where can we find you?
Well, you can find me here now as a co-host on shows on the Skeptic Haven channel. Thank you for inviting me. But you also can find me on Ryan Cultastic, just like my name here on YouTube. And then also you can find me on TikTok, Tax the Churches, or A Sandwich. Look for A Sandwich, like witch, like a witch. Trust me, you'll probably find my face somewhere on there.
And her TikToks
Oh,
are
and I'm
so
on
good.
Twitter too.
Yeah.
Oh, you like my TikTok?
I'm just gonna say it really quickly that I love. I've been following you for. I don't have done much on TikTok lately, but I've been following you for like the last couple of years, and your TikToks are so good.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I didn't know that. Thank you. I appreciate
I
it.
just creep on there. You know, I don't have any content. but-
Just creeping around. Sometimes you gotta do a little creeping. No, I appreciate that because it does make you feel better when people say like that my content, sparked something in them or got them to help them to get through a situation or got them through a question maybe that they had. Because
and you go deep too. You go deep onto like the historical stuff, and I've always I love.
I'm
that
trying.
Stuff. I love it.
I'm
so.
well because this is the kind of thing that was hidden from you as I'm sure you know in controlled religion, and just like Cindy had said before, they control information. So there's so much that I was not allowed to learn because it was demons, it was Satan. So now I'm just like, give me a goddamn book and let me read it because I just need to know this stuff. And I feel like this was great for me tonight because, like I said, I'm really not that familiar with other religions and belief systems. So this was great for me to put in my little wheelhouse. So that way I have points to discuss with others who have belief systems I'm not familiar with, so it helps us all. This really does help us all. So really, thank you guys for coming.
Oh, good.
This was fun.
It's been really fun.
Yeah, I had a good time.
Yeah. As for me, you can find me here also on Women Atheists Unload, or maybe in the future on the Global Atheists. I also have my own channel, The Path to Reason, where I'm not very, very active lately. But in any case, yeah, you can find me here. You can also subscribe, press the bell to make sure you're notified every time we make a video. Although it's always on Saturdays at the same time, so you should know by now. And if you don't, well, now you know.
Now you know.
I would like also to thank our Patreons. I don't have them at the top of my head, but we have.
I have them. They're in the private chat if you want me to read them.
Thanks. Please go ahead.
We have Bassthrasher, Kathy Cotton, Cindy Plaza, Bryce, Deborah Grace, Sunny Shell, Aaron Coalson, and Phil Calderone. Thank you all. Little love dumplings. We love you. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you want to have this channel grow, because as you see, we have now 6 or 7 shows, and we try to attract as many different demographics as we can. The Global Atheist is aimed at more European, African, and Asian demographics. So if you think you would like to have a show that is tackling a specific topic, then you can talk about it with us. Maybe we can make a show out of it, and for that you can also help us and be a patron. So thank you all for joining. Thank you everyone in the chat, and see you next time.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that, spitting slow, spitting fast. I could roast, I could gas, think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past. And the pettiness, a reflection of the emptiness, hilarious. You think you're worth my time, you're delirious.